My ex's deception shattered my life, and my parents believed her, disowning me in the process. Now, they want to reconcile after learning the truth. I never thought I'd share this story, but recent events have compelled me to open up. I am Alex, 30 and 5 years ago. My life took a drastic turn that I am still grappling with today. Growing up, I was always the responsible child in my family. My parents, John, 57, and Emily, 54, were proud of my academic achievements and my well-behaved nature. I have a younger brother, Ethan, 22, who was always a bit of a troublemaker, causing my parents more stress than I ever did. This dynamic created an unspoken expectation that I would always be the reliable son. I met Jessica, 24, during my junior year of college. We were in the same study group for our sociology class, and we hit it off immediately. Jessica was vibrant and outgoing, the complete opposite of my more introverted nature. She brought me out of my shell, encouraging me to try new things and meet new people. We started dating a few months after we met, and for 2 years, everything seemed perfect. Jessica and I talked about moving in together after graduation, even starting to look at apartments near the marketing firm where I had landed an entry-level position. My parents were hesitant about us living together before marriage, but they liked Jessica and were slowly coming around to the idea. Then came the day that changed everything. I had just finished a grueling final exam and was looking forward to celebrating with Jessica. When I arrived at her apartment, I found her in tears. At first, I thought something terrible had happened to her family, but the truth was far worse. Jessica confessed that she had been cheating on me with her coworker, Ryan, 25, for the past 3 months. I was blindsided. The Jessica I thought I knew would never do something like this. We argued for hours, going in circles about why she did it and how long it had been going on. I felt like I was in a daze, unable to fully process what was happening. Finally, I told her I needed some time to think and left. I went to stay with my best friend, Mike, 26, who had been my roommate during freshman year. Mike was furious on my behalf and suggested I break up with Jessica immediately, but I was conflicted. 2 years of memories and plans for the future don't disappear overnight. I spent a week at Mike's place, barely eating or sleeping, trying to decide what to do. In the end, I knew I couldn't trust Jessica anymore. The foundation of our relationship was shattered. I steeled myself and went to her apartment to officially end things. When I arrived, Jessica seemed nervous and jumpy. I thought it was because she knew why I was there, but I was wrong. As soon as I mentioned breaking up, Jessica's demeanor changed completely. She started screaming, accusing me of hitting her. I was so shocked I couldn't even respond at first. I tried to calm her down to understand where this was coming from, but she ran out of the apartment, still yelling about abuse. The next few hours were a blur. The police showed up at my door, and suddenly I was being arrested and questioned. Jessica had filed a report claiming I had physically abused her during our argument about her cheating. I kept insisting it wasn't true, but the officers seemed skeptical. My parents were called to the station. I expected them to support me, to know that I would never do something like this. Instead, they looked at me with a mixture of disgust and shame. My mother couldn't even meet my eyes, and my father's face was red with anger. They barely spoke to me, only asking the officers what would happen next. The investigation dragged on for weeks, and my life fell apart during this time. The university suspended me pending the outcome of the investigation. Most of my friends stopped talking to me, not wanting to be associated with an alleged abuser. Only Mike stood by me, offering his couch and his unwavering belief in my innocence. My parents' reaction was the most painful. They didn't even wait for the investigation to conclude before they disowned me. My father said they couldn't have an abuser for a son and that I had brought shame to the family. My mother, usually the more compassionate one, nodded in agreement. They changed the locks on the house and told me not to contact them again. Ethan tried to defend me, insisting that I would never hurt anyone, but our parents shut him down, forbidding him from contacting me. I later found out that they had taken away his phone and monitored his internet usage to ensure he couldn't reach out to me. Eventually, the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. The police found inconsistencies in Jessica's story, and there was no physical evidence to support her claims. But the damage to my reputation and relationships was already done. When I tried to tell my parents that I had been cleared, they refused to listen. They said I must have gotten away with it somehow or that the police just couldn't prove it. Their minds were made up, and no amount of evidence could change that. I was allowed to return to the university, but the whispers and stares were too much to bear. People who had once been my friends now crossed the street to avoid me. Professors who had praised my work regarded me with suspicion, even though I had been officially cleared. The stigma of the accusation clung to me like a shadow. After careful consideration, I decided to transfer to a college on the other side of the country to finish my degree. Mike helped me move and get settled, even lending me money for the security deposit on a small studio apartment. I changed my phone number and deleted all my social media accounts. I needed, to start fresh where no one knew me or my story. The next 2 years were incredibly difficult. I was alone in a new city, cut off from everyone I'd ever known except for Mike. I focused all my energy on my studies and worked part-time jobs to support myself. There were nights when the loneliness and injustice of it all felt overwhelming, but I forced myself to keep going. I graduated with a degree in graphic design and, through a stroke of luck, landed a job at a small creative agency. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I made a few acquaintances at work, though I was hesitant to call anyone a friend. The fear of being hurt or betrayed again was always present. Then, about a year ago, I met Sarah, 27, at a local bookstore. She was a regular there, always occupying the table next to mine with her laptop and a stack of novels. We started with small talk over coffee, which gradually turned into longer conversations. Sarah was kind and funny with a sharp wit that often caught me off guard. For the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to seeing someone, but I was terrified of starting a relationship. How could I trust anyone after what happened with Jessica, and how would Sarah react if she knew about my past? We became friends first, spending time together outside the bookstore. Sarah seemed to sense my hesitation about getting closer, and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. After a few months of friendship, I finally gathered the courage to tell her about what had happened with Jessica and my family. To my surprise and immense relief, Sarah believed me without question. She was outraged on my behalf, angry at Jessica for her lies and at my family for their lack of faith in me. Her support was like a balm to wounds I hadn't realized were still so raw. With Sarah's encouragement, I started to open up more. We've been dating for 8 months now, and things are going well, but I still struggle with trust issues and the pain of being abandoned by my family. I haven't had any contact with my parents or extended family since the incident, though Ethan managed to reach out to me in secret last year. We've been cautiously rebuilding our relationship, but it's difficult with our parents still forbidding him from contacting me. I am writing this post because I recently received some shocking news through Ethan. Apparently, Jessica has confessed to lying about the abuse. The guilt had been eating at her, and she finally broke down and told my parents the truth. But instead of reaching out to me to apologize, they're trying to pretend nothing happened. They asked Ethan to feel me out about reconciliation. I am conflicted about how to proceed. Part of me wants to confront them and demand an apology for the years of pain and isolation they put me through. Another part just wants to continue with my new life and leave the past behind. Sarah thinks I should at least hear them out, but I am not sure I am ready to open those old wounds. What should I do? Should I give my family a chance to explain themselves, or should I continue to keep them out of my life? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Thank you all for your supportive comments and advice. After much deliberation and several long discussions with Sarah, I decided to meet with my parents, but on my terms. I asked Ethan to arrange a meeting at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in my hometown. The days leading up to the meeting were filled with anxiety. I had nightmares about the confrontation, waking up in cold sweats. Sarah offered to come with me for support, but I felt this was something I needed to do alone. She understood and helped me prepare, even role-playing potential scenarios to help me feel more in control. When the day finally arrived, I got to the cafe early, choosing a table near the exit. My heart was pounding as I waited, half expecting them not to show up, but they did, walking in exactly on time, looking older and more haggard than I remembered. My mom burst into tears as soon as she saw me, while my dad just stood there looking uncomfortable. I didn't rise to greet them or offer hugs. I simply gestured for them to sit down, determined to maintain my composure. I started the conversation by setting ground rules. I told them I was there to listen to what they had to say, but that I wasn't promising forgiveness or reconciliation. They nodded, seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation. My mom spoke first, stumbling through an apology. She talked about how shocked and overwhelmed they were when the accusations came out. She said they reacted out of fear and shame rather than love and trust. My dad nodded along, occasionally adding his own words of regret. As they spoke, memories of that terrible time came flooding back. I remembered the look of disgust on their faces at the police station, the coldness in their voices when they told me not to come home. It took all my self-control not to walk out right then and there. When they finished, I asked them the question that had been burning in my mind for years. Why didn't you believe me? Their answer was disappointing to say the least. They talked about societal pressure, about not wanting to be seen as the parents who raised an abuser. They mentioned how convincing Jessica had been, how they thought they'd raised me better. Each excuse felt like a fresh slap in the face. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them exactly how their actions had affected me, the struggles, the loneliness, the trust issues I still battle every day. I described the nights I spent sleeping on Mike's couch, too ashamed to tell him I had nowhere else to go. I told them about having to leave my university, my friends, my entire life behind because of their lack of faith in me. I made it clear that their decision had cost them a relationship with their son for 5 years and possibly forever. I told them about the milestones they'd missed: my college graduation, my first job, my promotion. I watched as the reality of what they'd thrown away sank in. They asked about my life now, hungry for any information about the son they'd abandoned. I gave them bare-bones information, not mentioning Sarah or any details about my job or where I live. I am not ready to let them back into my life that much, if at all. As the meeting drew to a close, they asked if we could start rebuilding our relationship. I told them I needed time to process everything. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't outright refuse either. The ball is in my court now, and I intend to take all the time I need to decide what, if any, role I want them to have in my life going forward. I left the cafe feeling emotionally drained but somewhat relieved. I had said my piece, confronted the people who had hurt me so deeply. It wasn't the cathartic experience I had hoped for, but it was a step towards closure. Sarah was waiting for me at home, ready with comfort food and a listening ear. She held me as I recounted the meeting, offering support and validation. She thinks I handled it well and agrees that I should take my time deciding what to do next. Ethan called later that evening to check on me. He apologized for not standing up for me more when everything happened. I assured him that I didn't blame him. He was young and under our parents' control. We talked for hours, really connecting for the first time in years. For now, I am focusing on processing my emotions and figuring out what I want. I've decided to start seeing a therapist to help me work through the complex feelings this situation has brought up. Sarah has been incredibly supportive of this decision. I'll update again when I've made a decision about how to proceed with my family. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more than you know to have people believe in me and validate my feelings. Update 2. It's been a few months since my last update and a lot has happened. I've had time to process my feelings about the meeting with my parents, and I've come to a decision that I feel is right for me. After numerous sessions with my therapist and many long emotional conversations with Sarah, I've decided not to pursue a relationship with my parents at this time. Their apology, while seemingly sincere, didn't address the core issue, their fundamental lack of trust in me when I needed them most. The therapy sessions have been incredibly helpful in working through my feelings. My therapist helped me realize that while forgiveness might be possible someday, reconciliation isn't necessary for my healing process. She also pointed out that my parents' apologies seemed more focused on alleviating their own guilt than on acknowledging the full extent of the pain they caused me. I spent a lot of time reflecting on my childhood and my relationship with my parents before the incident. I realized that there had always been an undercurrent of conditional love. They were proud of me when I achieved things, but less supportive when I struggled or made mistakes. The false accusation situation, as terrible as it was, simply brought this dynamic to the forefront. After coming to this realization, I wrote a letter to my parents explaining my decision. I told them that while I appreciate their apology, the damage done to our relationship isn't something that can be easily repaired. I explained that I've built a life for myself without them, and I am not willing to risk my mental health and the stability I've worked so hard for by letting them back in. I also addressed Jessica's confession in the letter. I told them how hurt I was that they believed her over me, their own son, and that it took her admitting to lying for them to even consider that I might have been telling the truth all along. I made it clear that this breach of trust was the core issue, not just the act of disowning me. Their response to my letter was mixed. My mom left a tearful voicemail begging me to reconsider. She talked about how much she missed me and how she wanted to make things right. My dad, on the other hand, sent a terse email saying he understood but was disappointed in my decision. Their reactions only reinforced my belief that I am making the right choice for myself. Ethan has been supportive of my decision, although he's sad about the situation. We've grown much closer over the past few months, talking regularly and even video chatting. He's thinking about moving to my city for grad school next year, which I am excited about. It's nice to have a piece of my old life that isn't tainted by betrayal. On a brighter note, Sarah and I have taken a big step in our relationship. We've moved in together. It's been an adjustment, but a good one. She's been incredibly supportive throughout this whole process, and living together has only strengthened our bond. We're learning to navigate each other's quirks and habits, and it feels like we're building a real home together. Work continues to go well. I recently got a promotion to lead designer on a new project. The added responsibility can be stressful, but it's also incredibly rewarding. I am proud of what I've accomplished professionally, especially given how close I came to losing everything. I am still volunteering with a support group for victims of false accusations. In fact, I recently shared my story publicly for the first time at one of their events. It was nerve-wracking but ultimately empowering. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and it felt good to potentially help others who are going through similar ordeals. As for Jessica, I heard through Ethan that she's moved away and is allegedly seeking therapy. I hope she gets the help she needs, but I have no desire to ever see or speak to her again. Her actions caused immeasurable damage to my life, and while I am working on letting go of the anger, I am not interested in any kind of reconciliation with her. For now, I am focused on moving forward with my life. I am working on rebuilding my sense of self-worth and learning to trust again. It's a slow process, but I am making progress every day. I am proud of how far I've come and the person I've become. To anyone out there going through something similar, know that it does get better. It takes time, and it's not always a straight path, but you can come out the other side stronger. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. Seek help when you need it, and don't be afraid to cut toxic people out of your life, even if they're family. Update 3. It's been about a year since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this chapter of my life. A lot has changed, and I feel like I am finally in a place where I can look back on everything that's happened with some perspective. First, the big news. Sarah and I got engaged. I proposed during a weekend getaway to the beach. We hiked to this beautiful overlook, and as the sun was setting, I got down on one knee. I was so nervous I almost dropped the ring. But Sarah said yes before I could even finish asking. We're planning a small wedding for next fall. It feels surreal to be at this point in my life, considering where I was just a few years ago. Sarah has been my rock throughout this entire journey. She's seen me at my lowest points and has never wavered in her support. Planning our future together has given me a sense of hope and excitement that I thought I'd lost forever. After everything that happened with my family and Jessica, speaking of family, things have settled into a new normal with my parents. I've maintained my decision to keep them at arm's length. They occasionally send messages through Ethan, usually around holidays or birthdays, but I've asked him to limit the information he passes along. It's not a perfect solution, but it's what I am comfortable with for now. Ethan and I have grown even closer. He moved to my city for grad school as he'd planned, and it's been wonderful having him nearby. We have dinner together at least once a week, and he's become good friends with Sarah too. Having him in my life has helped fill some of the void left by the loss of my relationship with our parents. Work continues to go well. I've been promoted again and am now leading my own team. The added responsibility can be stressful, but it's also incredibly rewarding. I am proud of what I've accomplished professionally, especially given how close I came to losing everything. I am still volunteering with a support group for victims of false accusations. In fact, I recently shared my story publicly for the first time at one of their events. It was nerve-wracking but ultimately empowering. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and it felt good to potentially help others who are going through similar ordeals. As for Jessica, I received word from Ethan that she's moved away and is allegedly seeking therapy. I hope she gets the help she needs, but I have no desire to ever see or speak to her again. Her actions caused immeasurable damage to my life, and while I am working on letting go of the anger, I am not interested in any kind of reconciliation with her. For now, I am focused on moving forward with my life. I am working on rebuilding my sense of self-worth and learning to trust again. It's a slow process, but I am making progress every day. I am proud of how far I've come and the person I've become. To anyone out there going through something similar, know that it does get better. It takes time, and it's not always a straight path, but you can come out the other side stronger. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. Seek help when you need it. And don't be afraid to cut toxic people out of your life, even if they're family.